let's get started. I'm going to pause the music. Welcome to Hacking with 2020 Creative Ideation Workshop. This is going to be a bit more loose and fun. It's not going to be super structured and super be like, oh, this was like the best idea ever. Actually, hopefully you come up with the best idea ever. But mostly what we're here for is to have a bit of fun. But yeah, I hope you're excited. It's super nice to meet you all. I'll also quickly introduce myself as well as a workshop helper. So here you'll see Brandon and Shardul. The two of them will be here to help out with any technical problems, answer any questions. So if you have any questions during the entirety of this workshop, drop it in the chat. We'll all see it. And also like pause throughout to make sure we answer those questions. Also, if you're not there yet, we'll also mention this later, feel free to join the Hackathon Success channel on Discord. We'll mostly be having like conversations and answering questions there afterwards as well. Cool, let's get started. How do I get started? There we go. Hello, I'm Queenie. The really most important things, I'm an ENTP, an Enneagram 7, a Virgo Sun, Leo Moon, but I'm also a designer for now. But the thing is, this isn't really a design workshop, so it's going to be pretty fun, but it's okay because I'm also going to hopefully be a future audiobook narrator. This is practice. But yeah, what about you? Who are you? So you might be here because you've seen the same 3 ideas rinsed and reused at every hackathon you've been at. Maybe a voice assistant therapist, a food waste inventory app, a sign language identifier. These are great ideas, don't get me wrong, but you're probably asking, what can you do that's a little bit different? So that's why we're here. For this workshop, I did some super robust research with the best sources out there, and I realized it's super easy to be creative. All you need to do is just think outside the box. Here's the box. Here's where you should think. Done. But then we realized that even when we think outside the box, sometimes it feels like we're trapped in another bigger box. But before we get started in this workshop, I want to just quickly get to know where everyone kind of is in their ideation process, I guess. Like if you just absolutely zero clue what you're going to do, or like you kind of have an inkling, or maybe you have a super solid idea, which I don't know why you're here, but no judgment. We're here to have a good time. But Brandon's going to be pasting the link to the poll in the chat. Feel free to just get that pasted in your browser, do whatnot. It's just for me to better understand what everyone is, that's all. But yeah, as with those poll answers roll in, it's super short. I also wanted to share a quote that I read recently. Marshall McLuhan, who was a Canadian philosopher in communication theory, studied behavior and mass media, said that we look at the present through a rear view mirror and we march backwards into the future. This is important because when we're at events like hackathons, we're always thinking about innovation. We're always thinking about what can we do to make the future better. And this quote makes a lot of sense. We don't really know what's going to happen, and we don't really know what those next big ideas are. So we try and use our past to estimate it, right? But Frank Chimero, who is an author of the book, The Shape of Design, says, sure, but there is also a catch to that. Marching is no way to go into the future. It is too methodical and restricted. The world often subverts our best laid plans. So our road calls for a way to move that is messier, bolder, more responsive. The lightness and joy afforded by creating suggests that we instead dance. So today, for our creative ideation workshop, we're going to be learning how to dance. Dancing is human nature. It's been a way to communicate and connect with people since before recorded history, but so is innovating and creating. For as long as we've known, we've always looked to improve the way that we do things and make tools to get us there. And nowadays, there's a couple ways to do that. And you've probably heard of things like design sprints, maybe a waterfall or agile product development process, any sort of process like that, etc., which is great. But I can't really imagine people inventing the wheel back in the Stone Age while they're all sitting around a rock stop voting the best ideas or coming up with how might we's. I'm not saying that design sprints are wrong or bad. They're great tools. The same way I'm not saying that choreography ruins expressive dance, but today I'm going to challenge you to get a little bit loose and challenge those processes. So what are we doing today? We're going to be talking a little bit about the creative process, so just a little chit chat about what that means. And then we're going to dive straight into 4 different ideation strategies. So whether or not you have 0 ideas what you're going to do, a kind of inkling on what theme or problem you kind of want to try and solve, these 4 strategies will kind of help you either build a springboard to spring off of, or just like generate new ideas. We'll also go through 3 interactive activities to kind of just walk everyone through just the basis of it. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll not just have 1, but a handful of cool things to start with, and maybe for future hackathons too. But yeah, any questions or concerns before we get started? I can't see the chat while I'm presenting. That's good. What I realized. Cool. Thanks, Brandon. So the creative process. The creative process, if you know me, you know I have a love-hate relationship with anything with the word process in it. So I like to think of the creative process as no process at all. But like I said before, process is sometimes a good tool. It's also really helpful to have rules and instructions. So it sometimes is barely any process at all. And when those things become helpful is to know how wide your boundaries or where you want to kind of run and get creative. So you don't have to worry about going outside, like going really far outside the bounds or kind of coming up with something that isn't super relevant with what you want to do. If you understand where your restrictions are, then that's a really great place to get started. This might be a goal you have for this weekend, whether it's something you want to learn or get experience in. Maybe it's a theme or a problem you want to focus on. And again, if this box doesn't exist, that's fine too. We'll start drawing it soon. But this is the place where ideation will work best. So you have this box, we can set it aside, and that will help us roam freely in and around it. And that's where the most creative ideas will come. How can we roam in those never explored spaces? We have some maybe like obvious places we can go, but how can we cover more ground? So yeah, we're going to be talking about 4 ways that we can do so. We're going to be talking about creative questions, creative configurations, creative applications, and creative constraints. And we're going to tie some definitions to that as we go through it. The first thing we're going to be talking about is creative questions. And you can probably try and guess, or you can probably guess what it is. Creative people challenge what we assume to be true, and always question the surface value of the status quo. So for example, when solving a problem, to be creative, we can challenge the most obvious solutions. Why is the most obvious one? Why are those patterns the one that we think of first? Why do we even think it's a solution? And try solving the root of a problem or understand the root of a theme instead. For example, there's this app called Umbrella, and it challenges why we check the weather. Often when we create things that provide information, apps or software that provide information, we tend to bias towards richer information, more data. But the people who created this challenge the question of why we used or weather apps in the first place. And they found out that, well, you usually check it before you leave the house, or maybe you check the weather before you leave on a trip to understand what to bring with you that might, help out with any situations that you're in, such as an umbrella. So here, instead of providing you with all those different pieces of information, all they did was a quick notification of like, hey, you should bring your umbrella today. It might be raining. And that seemed to be just for this case, it seemed to be all the information that they needed. And so, yeah, challenging the status quo of what we think what it is. So here we're going to jump straight into the first activity. And I know it's like, okay, well, we just started and I don't even know what to do. That's totally fine. That's basically what we're trying to do here, get your brain working a little bit. And this first activity is just really simply going to be asking why. We'll spend a little bit of time trying to understand either a theme or problem you already have, or I'll also have a list of prompts. And this won't be super robust research work. We're not going to like spend a bunch of time truly understanding the space. It's okay to work with assumptions for now. But what I do want you to do is if there's a question that you can't really answer, take a note of it If you want to search up later, that's a great idea. But the exercise here is just like dig a little bit deeper than you can. So I have a list of problem spaces up on the screen right now. You can also find this, I know it says syllabus here, but you can find this in the hack pack, which will be a slightly longer list of example problem spaces that you can kind of take inspiration from, or you can just grab them and go. There's also sources attached to some of them, so feel free to click on them later. But yeah, so these are some example problem spaces that we can start with. And so we want to take one of them into this activity. And what I want you to do is choose 3 of the problem statements, or if you have your own already, feel free to just use that one. And I want you to just ask for that situation, why is this a problem? And then I want you to phrase your answer. So this is a great time to get your pencil and paper out, or your pen and paper out, and write down these statements, because so forth and so forth. And once you have that statement, I also want you to look at the statement and ask why again. So I'm going to give you an example. The problem space that I've chosen today is my sandwich is too dry. I know this is like a not super applicable example, maybe. It might be applicable later on, but this is just to help walk everyone through so that we feel like we're on the same page and kind of know what to do. So if my problem space was my sandwich is too dry, then I'm going to ask, why is my sandwich too dry? And I'll write down, because I don't have any sauces or condiments to put on it. And then your challenge is to take that why and ask, why don't I have any condiments to put on it? Maybe it's because the selection at the grocery store is too overwhelming, so I didn't end up buying any. Does that make sense? And so if you already have your own and you don't want to do 3, you can ask why 5 times. But what I want everyone to do is, at the end of this activity, everyone should end up with around 5 to 6 because statements. Does that make sense? And we'll have 8 minutes to go with it before we start. Any questions? Oh, thank you, Sophie, for linking the hack pack. Totally forgot. Cool. Awesome. The timer will be also on the screen, and feel free to reference the hack pack for any of the prompts. But yeah, let's get started. I'm gonna also put on some more Japanese jazz.
Leslie said play music.
One step ahead of you. if you're already kind of reaching the 5 to 6 statements, I challenge you to do one more layer of why, or pick another statement to try this with, just for fun, or you can take a break. It's a bit aggressive, this jazz, but hopefully it. This is really long, 8 minutes. I didn't realize we feel this long if I'm not doing anything. No, you don't need to do that. 3 statements is good, or 2 statements is good for each problem statement if you're choosing 3. Just 5 to 6 total. So if you already know which problem or what kind of problem you want to solve, or if you have one in mind, then you can ask 5 statements for that one. Also, don't feel the need to like come up with the thing you're going to solve right now. Like, this is just one of the ways that we can come up with an idea. So don't feel like you'll be married to it right after, or like right now. I mostly daydream. I also see some folks who are joining us now. Feel free to just hop on in, take a break, and jump in and jump out at any time. There's no need to. Great question. Is anyone going to sleep tonight at all? Personally, sleep is really fun, I think. I'm a true believer in that, like, we live to sleep. Yes, thank you, Leslie. Also, sleeping means that you can dream, which is really fun. If anyone's a lucid dreamer, please give me some tips. Yay! I'm glad you like the jazz. Also very inspired by Soul. That was a good movie.
Ooh.
Oh, great question. I'll actually drop it's not my playlist. I will drop the link to the playlist in the chat. I hope it's the right link. Yeah, I dream journal all the time. I try and write right after I wake up. But then sometimes I'll read it back. I'll be like, I have no idea. No idea what that was. All right, 3 seconds. 2, 1. Great work, everyone. That's a great question. Am I dreaming right now? I don't think I am.
Oh.
If I am, that'd be kind of weird. And I'll be like, oh no, I have to do this workshop again. Okay, cool. Before we get started, or I guess before we move on, does anyone want to share some really fun ones, really, maybe some funny ones, maybe some really insightful ones, maybe some really deep ones, of problems that you explored and their why. Feel free to. Yes, I agree. Many things, many problems are rooted in capitalism, unfortunately. If not, we can also keep moving.
We have a few questions.
Oh, yeah.
So we have one's from Vivian. She wanted to know about where to find all these challenges. And then the second one's from Rocky about how did you build a timer into PowerPoint?
First, Vivian, by challenges, do you mean the interactive activities? Or am I misunderstanding? But to answer Rocky's question first, there's this Chrome extension called Slides Timer. And if you download it, if you do double pointy brackets around the time and then a minus or a plus, it will count up or count down from that time, which is pretty cool. The prompts from Kansas. Oh, are you talking about like the specific hackathon? Yeah. I'm pretty sure it can be found on DevPost. I'm not sure where that link is sent, but on DevPost there are like all the different categories for the challenges from each of the sponsors should be there. Yeah, thank you for the link.
Thank you, Yash.
Oh yeah, and Steven said that as well. Thank you.
Sarah asked, "These slideshows amazing. Did you design it?"
I did. Thank you. This slide isn't my favorite though, but we're looking at it. Okay, cool. Let's move forward. Thanks, Taylor. I'm so happy that made my evening. Okay, cool. So now you have kind of a list of because statements, which are pretty cool because you're like, oh, let's dig a little bit deeper. Let's keep on digging a little bit deeper. Some of them will be really like not super useful, even though true, like the whole rooted in capitalism thing, even though, you know, we understand it. It might not be super useful to apply to, for example, a hackathon project, unless you want to overthrow capitalism, which is great too. Definitely do that. But what we can see is like kind of a range of different like whys, and we can kind of choose any of them to keep going down and keep tackling. But now you kind of dug a little bit deeper into a particular theme or a particular problem instead of just looking at the surface level. So that was just like the first activity to get your brain working a little bit. However, not quite, because sometimes why can be the wrong question. And I know you're thinking like, oh, I just wasted 8 minutes. But you didn't, because those are still useful. The thing is, the question why can also often create self-fulfilling prophecies. And what I mean by that is when you ask why something is a problem, you are already assuming that it is a problem. So instead, what we could do is also try and understand the situation and the environment as a whole. And to do so, we can ask for narratives or stories around this problem, folks who are experiencing this problem or causing this problem. This can be a why question, but it can also be a when, a who question, or a how. A couple examples are who might be disproportionately affected by the situation, who might be benefiting from it. If this problem came to be for a caused by a totally different reason, there must be like a reason why that situation happened. When or where might this problem be exaggerated or occur most often, or to think kind of counterintuitively, what might be some positive outcomes of not fixing this problem? So for example, with the dry sandwich problem space, with like muscular dystrophy, or even someone who's just plain thirsty might find swallowing dry foods even more difficult. Or for example, the positive outcomes of not solving this problem is maybe realizing I'm not actually that hungry. Maybe I should eat some, or maybe I should diversify my recipes, try something else. These are also really great questions. You can find these as well as more interesting prompt questions in the hack pack as well. So hopefully that can help you dig a little bit deeper into any problems or themes. In the hackathon world, we can apply this strategy of creative questions by digging deeper into our ideas through asking open-ended questions during the different phases of ideation. So what's really cool about questions is that like they can be applied in the very beginning of your ideation phase of what we just did, or a little bit later on of like coming up with details or features, like, oh, we can dig a little bit deeper. Anyways, moving on to the second strategy. Actually, before we move on to the second one, are there any creative questions from the audience?
None yet. Oh, good to go.
Cool. Let's move on to the second strategy that we'll be talking about today, which is creative configurations. So you're probably thinking, if I'm creative, I can come up with a really original idea. I mean, the first one to think of it, it's going to be, a super innovative. No one's ever heard of it before. I want you to kind of kill the myth that creativity equals originality, though, because nothing is original, at least by definition. And if there's only one thing that you take away from this entire workshop, if none of it was helpful, I just want you to know that nothing is original or novel. For example, your DNA that makes up who you are isn't new or original. It's a mix of your ancestors. It's a mix of your biological parents who created you as a person. However, the specific output of that DNA structure or order is has created something original, which is you. And even if you're a twin, that's true as well. So we can often think of breakthrough ideas or new ideas as configurations of things that already existed. Every innovation is just a new perspective, configuration, or combination of things or ideas that already exist. Breakthroughs often occur when what's around us is repurposed or paired with something that's never been paired with before, taking elements of different things and playing around with it as such. We see this in examples everywhere, including nature. Feathers were initially an adaptation for keeping animals warm, but as needs and environments changed, it became a feature that helped birds fly, applying that same object or the same thing, but for a different purpose. Another example of that is Johannes Gutenberg took existing wine screw presses, which pressed grapes into wine, and combined them with brass letters to create the printing press, which is credited to accelerating the work of printing books and sharing knowledge. Something else, so the inventors of the internet also had the same goal of sharing knowledge, but they had completely different resources and different applications. And so the World Wide Web was invented to do the same thing, to follow that same goal of helping scholars share research and knowledge, making it a little bit more accessible to folks around the world. And over time, more and more people saw the advantages of data sharing technology of the web, and now powers different industries like entertainment and e-commerce. You can buy some weird things. And so these are just examples, some of them are in technology, some of them totally are not, of ways that something totally new kind of stem from either existing goals, existing situations, or even existing objects. So how can you look at things in a new light? An example of this is searching up things like hackathon idea generators, like this one, where it will kind of put two random things together. There are already quite a few projects like that out there, which is pretty cool, and they can help with random combinations and inspire you. Feel free to search them up and play with them during the short break that we'll have just in a couple of seconds. But yeah, it's a really great way to just challenge yourself to try and find connections between things, because configuring and connecting seemingly disparate concepts is a really creative superpower. If you're able to think of two completely random things and see how that they potentially connect or potentially share something between them, that can always be a huge advantage. The most creative people are able to connect the dots between seemingly random things. So in the hackathon world, what we can do is apply the strategy of creative configurations by being inspired by what already exists. We don't have to dismiss them because they're already there. We can incorporate them in different ways and bring in experiences of our own as well as those around us. Again, during the break, feel free to also look up the idea generators as well as take time to jot things down that you just think are cool, like anything you've seen in the last week, I don't know. Even if they're not applicable to your certain problem space or your theme that you want to do, but having them in front of you can help inspire any fresh configurations. Just jot some cool things down. As a quick recap before we head into a little break, we've so far talked about asking questions and getting inspiration from things around us. So with that being said, I also just want everyone to take a quick little breather for 5 minutes, and we can jump back into things. Whether you take some time chatting with your team, searching things up, getting a snack. Yeah. Deb says, so like brainstorming problems in different sectors. Yeah, that's a totally great way to do so. There's endless ways to make lives better or make things better. There's no limit. Cool. So we've taken a breather. Welcome back. Let's play. So this isn't going to be anything. This is literally just be a kid. Like, it's not going to be super useful. It will be useful. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Let's play. Let's have some fun. We're gonna jump straight into an activity that'll hopefully stretch out your brain muscles. Or if you haven't stretched your body muscles yet, stand up and stretch. I probably need to do that. I have really bad posture. Okay. Going into our second interactive activity of the day. This is called the worst idea ever. And what I want you to do is, right now you have like 5 to 6 problem statements in front of you, or you have a really interesting random combination example that you wrote down maybe, or maybe you have like a couple of cool things that you searched up or jotted down during the break, and that you want to start combining, or things like that. Whatever you have right now, I want you to choose 2 of them. So either choose 2 of their problem statements, so because, so on and so forth, or whatnot. And I want you to draw out the worst possible solution you can come up with to solve, in quotation marks, that problem, or the worst version of that like combination of things. Does that make sense? Like, be detailed and specific, over design your features, like make it really wacky. Feel free to get fun with it. Something weird, come with something funny. I know it's a little bit of a pressure to be funny, but that's also fun. But what I want you to do is also, like, with those features or with those things that make it a bad solution or make it a really bad idea, I want you to quickly jot down next to it like a reason for why it's bad. And so I'll also just like give you an example. Maybe it's a feature that makes the situation worse. Maybe it's because it's inaccessible and just like straight up people can't use it. Or maybe it causes like a whole other problem. That's totally fine too. So for example, going back to my little sandwich problem, my sandwich is too dry. One of my because statements was because I don't have any condiments to put on it. Well, maybe the solution is just dunk it in water. I have water, but that's probably not the best solution, because my bread will be soggy and just straight up not be that good. I mean, if you like sandwich soup, that's not judging, but my other because statement is because the selection at the grocery store is too overwhelming. So maybe a bad solution is create a policy where all grocery stores only stock a single condiment. The thing is, yeah, sure, like the selection won't be as overwhelming, but this is pretty bad because I don't have a lot of options, nor will anybody who shops at those grocery stores. And so yeah, just list a reason why, like, that's just straight up not a great idea. Again, like, don't feel like you're constrained to, for example, an app or a piece of software. Like my example, I know is like not in software at all, basically, but feel free to explore like physical solutions, physical tools, maybe policy things, stuff like that. Like, the world is your oyster. And so, why can't I control my slides? But yeah, before we get started on this activity, which is meant to be a little bit fun. Any questions? If not, let's get started. We have 10 minutes. So listen up your time. If you're choosing 2 problem statements, 5 minutes on one, just like keep going, like add some ugly details in there. Ready? Let's go. I'll play the to-do list playlist by request.
Oh, we have a question.
Mhm.
So we have one from Rocky, and he says, "How would we apply physical solutions to a hackathon?"
Great question. Sometimes you can have like hardware solutions, but the reason why I say like explore physical solutions is because the point of this activity is not to come up with your hackathon project. Well, at least not necessarily unless we're at like terrible hacks. But it's just an exercise to get you thinking outside of what you normally would come up with. So yeah, come up with the most ridiculous. Oh, that's the word, ridiculous.
Carolyn.
Hi, Mom. Welcome. Yazan asks, what is happening right now? We are just coming up with the worst idea that we can probably ever think of, based on any problems that we have brainstormed earlier on. So, for example, the worst, I don't know, if my problem is like, I'm not active enough during the day when I'm sitting in front of a computer in a million different calls. Maybe the worst idea ever is a laptop that constantly runs away from you. So you always have to chase it. So in order to work, you also have to be physically active. It solves the problem, but probably not in the right way. That was just off the top of my head. Just, yeah, feel free to use that one too if you'd like. What song is that? Pretty good vibe. It's called Positive Force by Delicate Steve. It's one of my favorite songs to get work started on. Like, this is one of those like Pavlovian songs for me, where when this comes on, I'm like, time to do stuff. I
Where's this
recommend.
from? Like, is this a playlist?
Yeah, it is a playlist. The playlist is called To Do List, and this is the first song in it, which is why it's Pavlovian.
Is this by you?
Yeah, it's my playlist. This one's like, they're mostly 90% of them are instrumental, but not like classical music. It's like instrumental, vibey, guitar-y, kind of alty, kind of rocky, a little bit of everything. Lo-fi is great. I'm traumatized by it. Because I used to listen to a lot during exam seasons, and I'm like, no more.
Carolyn's always trolling. So, oh.
Also, use any random questions. It's like a live stream podcast. Are there any interesting questions? Oh, I do not know who I am. Piyush asks, you guys ever heard of 10 Hours of Brain Fun? Oh, that's vibey. Queenie, who are you? What's your story?
It's a loaded question.
Only my therapist has really heard the entirety of that. Don't know if this is the right to do that. Yavin asks, what do you guys do? What does a friend do?
What's Ikigai?
Chardol, what do you do? Brandon, what do you do?
What do I do? I'm a student, so I study not often. I'm in my last year, and what company did I work for recently? So I worked for this Toronto startup called Together. It's like a mentorship software platform. It's really cool.
That is really cool. What's your... I can't pronounce that properly. Ikigai. I do know what it is, but I never pronounce it right. I did that activity once. It wasn't great. A lot of existential crises, but I recently did a life map exercise inspired by Leslie, who is in this workshop. And I realized that in the future, I like my Ikigai calling per se would be a part-time tour guide, like around a city, part-time audiobook narrator, part-time ceramics artist, part-time improv show thing person. There's one more that I'm missing. Life coach. Thank you, Leslie. Yes. And also part-time life coach. That would be where the most stable income comes in. I not see the sun when it is nighttime. That's actually not always true, because in the Arctic, for example, in the summer, they have 24-hour sunlight in the Arctic Circle. So it's night, per se.
Oh, what was it?
What city? For what? In the Arctic Circle? There are a couple of cities in the Arctic Circle. Or tour guide. I don't know. Literally any city. I love maps. Why is it when I close my eyes I can't see? I don't know. Oh, thank you for being an audiobook fan.
Oh, I have a question for everyone, and Queenie, and everyone. So there's this question that I had over the summer. It was, would you rather have all of your fingers be toes or have all of your toes be pinkies? I think it was.
I feel like that'd be a weak foot to stand on.
You can like grab stuff.
Oh, well.
that really stumped you.
That really drew me away from... Well, okay, the thing is, if I have toes on my hands, that's a moneymaker, you know? People pay...
There's literally no practical benefit to having pinkies or your fingers be toes.
Kasim makes a really good point. It would hurt to stub your toes if it all went on your toes. That's very... Like, I don't even want to think about it. Oh, this one's not instrumental. That's one of the reasons. That's one of the examples.
See, I brought up the idea of podcasts before, but I got shot down really quickly. It would not be interesting enough.
I think podcasts are cool, but I feel like it's so saturated. Like, I feel like there's more podcast makers than there are listeners.
Yeah. But,
I have 10 seconds left.
How has your experience been like at Waterloo? Really great. Really, really great.
That's because Brandon has a friend like me. So.
Yes, I met Queenie at Waterloo, so obviously It's been really good. No, it was actually the best experience or the best decision I've made in my 23 years of living.
Wow, that's a really heavy statement.
It is a heavy statement. I don't know if I mean it. I don't know. I do. I mean it. Definitely mean it.
Oh, Alexander's called
no,
old.
stop. That's so mean. I get called old all the time.
The save, the wisdom.
I have a small brain.
Our time's also up, though. Hope everyone had a little bit of fun doing that. Does anyone want to share some like bad ideas that they had? I just think they're really funny. Whenever we like do this type of exercise, there are some like pretty bad ones, which is really cool to see. Feel free to type them out if you like. No, nobody have bad ideas. Does everyone only have good ideas? Surprising. My ideas aren't always good. They're rarely good. Oh, what is it?
Share, please share.
Banning fridges so people only buy days worth of food. Ah, smart. For the people not working out, starving to play. Ooh. I imagine there will be a lot of human rights. Buy a new computer every time you need to open a new tab, so you never have to reopen. Oh yes, I love that one.
I'm a big fan of that one.
It's a lot of computers. Right now, I think I have like at least.
Ooh, Rocky.
People don't know.
Gotta be bad ideas. Good idea.
An app that will create a randomized Google Calendar for you and random activities too, and you have to follow it. Yo, that's so cool. I actually like really want that. I don't think it's a bad idea at all. Like I would totally use that. I'm someone who, here's a little therapist thing. I'm someone who really fears stagnation. So something that would actually be really cool. If you can't navigate your ebook, just draw on your screen. Oh, great. Taking a lot in mirror so you don't need to worry about how you look. It's a good idea, actually. Random tasks per day. Start a nonprofit to solve world poverty. Close the computer so you have no tabs. Also a really good idea. I mean, bad idea. Good idea. But is it a good thing to have a worse idea? I think so in this case. Okay. Anyway, let's move forward. I actually have no concept of time, so I don't know if we're on time or not. I think we are.
It's 11:30 or 8:30.
Oh, great. We're perfect. We're perfect. Oh, I love that. A productivity app that keeps on playing the Apple alarm until the task is finished.
It'll never be finished. I get distracted so easy.
Yeah, if my task was waking up, that would work. I don't need to do that. It plays for at least 5 minutes when you wake up. Okay, cool. Let's continue. So that was just a little bit of activity. So we're going to move on to something called creative applications. 3 of 4 creative approaches. So I put the slide in thinking that this was a super original quote. I just came up with it, that kind of thing. But I realized if you Google it, like there are a couple different variations. So it just goes to show that nothing is original. I also debated taking the slide out like 5 minutes before this, so I don't think this is going to make sense, but we're going to go for it anyway. Engineering, as you probably heard, is applied science. We take a lot of our theories and hypotheses and we approximate, experiment, build, and screw up. And we have to do it time and time again and document all the ways that we implement and build, so we get to learn from them. Imagination is similar. Not everything will make sense when you create the things coming out of your imagination. And it might not make sense in the real world. We have to exercise it time and time again, look at different variations of it. Our first few ideas will likely be low-hanging fruit, the most obvious ones. And we have to keep pushing our brains to make those fresh connections and applications, like we said earlier. A really great example of that is how Ed Sheeran writes songs. During an interview, when he was asked how he comes up with his big brain lyrics, he said this quote. He compared his songwriting process to kind of turning on and cleaning a rusty tap. So you turn on the tap and it just spits out shit water for the first 10 minutes. And then you start to get cleaner water with occasional bits of grit before the flow is clean water. So he compares this to the way that he jots down the cheesiest, the worst lyrics, and just jots it down in a notebook before the good ideas can start flowing out, because your brain has kind of made those obvious connections first. Bringing back that little boundary box thing that we were talking in the a little bit earlier, you can think of this as your first idea, the box within that boundary that we're trying to roam around in. And you can try and improve it. This is like the most obvious one. You can try and add to it, improve it, and you come up with a slightly better idea. And yeah, that's awesome. You can totally stop there, and it's a great idea to start with. But what about all the space around this boundary that you're totally just not covering, that we haven't even started exploring yet? And so that's why you just push yourself to keep going, one at a time, coming up with new ideas. And some will be worse than before, and that's just expected. But some will also be better and fresher. And once we start exploring that space a little bit more freely, we can then pinpoint ideas that we want to start with. You have a lot more options in front of you to kind of combine or evaluate. But now you've known that you've explored wide enough that you don't feel like you're missing out. It's like idea FOMO. And so that brings me to, I know this little like section of talking was a little bit shorter, the third and final interactive activity, Crazy Eights. Not the card game though, and I know some of y'all might have heard of this before, some of you might not. That's totally fine. We're going to go right into it. But what I want you to do for this is take a piece of paper. So in your piece of paper, I'll demo this, a little bit of an origami tutorial. I want you to take your piece of paper, whether it's an 8.5 by 11 square piece of paper, and I want you to make 8 sections on this piece of paper, whether you draw it out 8 boxes or the easier way, just folding it 3 times. It's not folding it in half. Folding it again in half. And one more time in half. And then you unfold all of it, and it should create little creases in your paper and box out 8 little sections on your piece of paper. Basically what this is just setting yourself up for yourself to rapidly kind of come up with 8 different ideas, so you don't have to always be grabbing a new piece of paper, all that stuff. And you just move on to that. And also you can see, that way you can also see all your ideas out on one page at a time. But yeah, feel free to like also draw the boxes if you want. It's really, I'm overcomplicating it. But what I want you to do for this version of Crazy Eights and Rapid Ideation is I want you to pick one of the 2 worst ideas that you just had and turn it on its head. How can it be flipped into a good solution? Is there elements of it that you can kind of make it into the opposite version of it? Are there parts of it that you actually realize aren't that bad of an idea if you just added a little bit to it or modified a little bit of it? I also want you to remember that in this case, diagrams are better than words. So if you can aim towards the side of creating pictures or stories, or like almost like comic versions of it, of showing like someone maybe going through an experience or using something, that's going to explain your ideas a lot better than just a paragraph of words, and you can also see it more visually. However, I do want you to just like quickly label the idea of what it is, just jot down a word that helps you remember key pieces of information. I don't know why I'm explaining how to jot your ideas down, but pictures are better than words. And also, I know this like turning your worst idea thing can sometimes be really, can get you stuck really easily, because sometimes your worst idea maybe is just straight up bad. You can't do anything to fix it. There's no saving it. If you get a bit stuck there, this is a great time to start exploring how to directly solve the problem too. The point of this isn't to just come up with like the best ideas first. Just like we said before, what we want to do is just explore that space. Embrace every idea, even if it's worse than the one before, better than the one before. All I want you to do is just keep going. So for example, with my sandwiches too dry, when I did this version of Crazy Eights, of looking at like the bad solutions, one of the bad solutions was only like supplying one condiment. And the reason why I was bad was because I had no choice. Well, having no options sometimes might be a good thing. How do I change that? Maybe I can make it a subscription sampler of locally made condiments and sauces where I still don't have the option to choose. Maybe they only send me one, I don't know. But it's also a great solution because I can support local restaurants, chefs, that type of thing. Or maybe, like I said before, like maybe it's just my recipes are not great. And so maybe one of the solutions is to create really digestible content of sandwiches from around the world, as well as their recipes. Yeah, just like go wide, explore different things. But we're gonna get started. Do we have any questions? Also time. So we'll do this like 8 times and I'll put on a different, like I'll time each one. So we'll walk through this grade beats. We'll hold your hand through it. Okay, cool. Let's get started on the first one. Ready? Yep. 1 minute to jot down your first idea. Anything, the first thing that comes to your mind. The first thing that comes to mind is the best is to turn the bad idea around. I'm going to stop talking and put on some music again.
Elizabeth says she loves your drawings.
Oh, thank you. Oh, they're also messy for a reason. They don't have to be detailed drawings. They don't have to be good drawings. Just get them down. Kabir asks, what do I draw with? These ones were just using the pencil tool in Figma. So it was literally like a trackpad. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Move on to your second box. Come on. I can't. No, I can do the slide. Okay, and go. Again, first thing that comes to your mind, get that down in that second box. Halfway to the second idea. Three, 2, 1. Onto the third. Go. Ten seconds left. On to the next, fourth, go. So it might start to feel a little bit more difficult to come up with some ideas, and it's really fine. Also put some prompts from the questions that we had from before. So if you already had a couple of ideas, like, again, think about who might be disproportionately affected by this problem. Can we specifically try and tackle that? Or maybe tackling this problem in a particular time of day, time of year. Yeah. Digging a little bit deeper or even more precise. Oh, I forgot to move on to the next one. Go. Fifth one. You're halfway there. $20 seconds. And 6. I also see some folks who are just joining us. What we're doing right now is just rapid ideation, just jotting down the first thing that comes to mind. Three, two, one. On to the 7th. Again, some ideas might be harder to come to mind. You do have multiple because statements you can try out, multiple or 2 different worst idea solutions that you probably thought of. But also now you have 6 different solutions in your Crazy 8s board. What are some ways you might be able to combine 2 of them that are already on the page? What's new with that? Creative configuration. Everything is connected. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1, and on to the 8th. Oh, I have some more questions on this slide, I guess. Yeah, what if the solution was like a smartwatch app? Maybe choose different types of devices, a voice assistant, a physical tool. Maybe it's a solution for children, parents, people who are neurodivergent. Who knows? Just some inspiration questions. All right, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You think you're done? Just kidding. Do one more. Turn that page over. Grab another piece of paper. Draw on your wall. Do one more. 9th idea. It's going to be a bit weird, a bit out of the box, but do one more. Even if it's a slightly modified version of an earlier one, that counts too. 3, 2, 1, and done. All right. Shake out your wrists a little bit. That's probably a bit of writing and drawing. Don't get carpal tunnel. Yeah, cool. So it's like, well, why did you make me do 9? Didn't we say we were doing 8? Yeah, I didn't say we were doing 8. But the point of this is just to show that the number 8 is literally just a benchmark. It's an arbitrary number that someone made up that was like, oh, it'd be a cool exercise to do. Just because this exercise tells you to do 8 doesn't mean that it's a magic number. So if you did an exercise called Crazy 8s, it doesn't mean that one of those 8s will definitely be the golden ticket. Sometimes, if your problem is really specific and scoped, 8 might be too many. Or if your problem is super broad, 8 might be barely enough. And so even now, you still might not have landed on something that feels just right, but that's okay because you have this array of things in front of you and all of them are great ideas and all of them can be modified. They can all be combined in different ways. You can dig a little bit deeper into any of these 9 that you currently have. And this also applies to other exercises too. So the whys, I guess like the problem statements one that we did earlier, the war solution, all the numbers that I gave were just arbitrary. Like feel free to do more, do less, don't do them at all. It's totally fine too. But the true magic number is just one more than what feels comfortable or one more that you are able to do. That level of pushing yourself a bit outside of your comfort zone, just do one more than you can, will often be the trick to the spark. In the hackathon world, we can apply the strategy of creative applications by challenging ourselves to explore a wide range of ideas. So any little idea is a valid one, jot them down. And we can use that in future ideas as well, both the good ones and the bad ones. So moving on to our final little, I guess, creative strategy, it's called creative constraints. This feels a little bit counterintuitive and a bit backwards, but constraints can be a springboard for creativity. Limiting our choices sometimes force us to push against those boundaries or to change up our perspective. It can also help us narrow down if we feel like we have a lot of different ideas that we just generated. An example of that is something as simple as screen size. So a really cool example of a project was a touch bar putt. So despite many ways to recreate a Tamagotchi, whether it be a Tamagotchi or a phone app, constraining your space like a touch bar had birthed the idea of a touch bar putt. It's the same great idea, but it doesn't take up much more screen space. A couple of applicable constraints that we have right now. We had a question for like these earlier, the hackathon prizes, things like the voice flow app, Hack for Good, hardware hack. These are prizes for Hack the North, and feel free to choose one of them as a constraint to ideate within. They can also be different technologies you want to learn about during this hackathon, whether it be mobile development, web development. There's a really awesome React workshop earlier. There's a recording of it somewhere in Hopin, so definitely check that one out. Building a Chrome extension maybe, or you want to learn about computer vision, AR, VR, anything. What your curiosities are also a great way to make those constraints. It can also be constraining the environment of the theme or the problem that you're trying to solve, or a specific type of user or a specific type of person who might be using this idea or this project. This can help you expand what you assume to be universal experiences. So something that you think might be a really great idea for yourself might not be the best use case for someone else who's experiencing a slightly different life. Things like slow internet speed, a specific device, maybe it's something about tackling the problem causer rather than the problem, I couldn't find the right word for this, receiver, feeler, problem victim, I don't know. Maybe users who might not be able to read for various different reasons. Maybe they're relying on different sensory cues like sight, hearing, touch. Maybe they're not native language speakers of a particular tool that you're creating. Maybe they're extremely busy and they're just not going to adopt something new, or maybe they have a lot of free time. Those are all different examples or ideas that we can start with. You can also make this constraint a superpower. The constraint doesn't just have to narrow down your ideas, but it can also be the ground of where your ideas, or I guess where that project really shines. So for example, something that we've noticed more recently, I guess in the past year, it's been a whole year of COVID-19, by the way, was a lot of people were trying to recreate in-person experiences digitally. And we know there's a lot of constraints there. It's like not super easy to do so, especially like socialization digitally. But what if this constraint of being online was a superpower or a feature? What if we didn't try to get closer towards synchronous communication and synchronous interaction, but this digital version was actually like a good thing? So for example, like a digital scrapbook that everyone kind of contributes to. It's the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants digital scrapbook version. Maybe you're like creating your own little corner in the internet, and it's like a little, I guess, bring MySpace back. I don't know, like things that people can contribute to and interact without everyone needing to be online at the same time. Maybe asynchronous can be a superpower. In the hackathon world, we can apply the strategy of creative constraints by setting obstacles, either adding them to your solution so you can try and push those boundaries, or making it the main character of your idea. So you're probably asking whether you continue to do these activities later on, or you have a couple of ideas that you're like, oh, this would be really cool. Did we land on the right idea? And that's a really, really important question. Outside of a hackathon, if we're building for the long term and building for a large group, I cannot emphasize enough the importance of thoroughly understanding our problem as well as the people who are affected by it. And I really recommend going to, or I guess watching the recording of the design thinking workshop that happened during Gear Up to learn more about user-centered design and how we can validate a problem space or whatnot. But the thing is, even if you're going through that process of asking, did we land on our idea, it often requires us to conceptualize it and just start. And so maybe the better question here is, did we land on an idea we can start with? Especially at a time crunch hackathon, sometimes we just need to know where to start. But the thing is, all those ideas that you might not have started with or might not continue going with will probably sometimes come back, either as a feature or as a slight modification, or maybe at a future hackathon. So don't throw it out or dismiss it completely. They might lead to a whole new project. But yeah, this is a really great time, especially if you have just a couple things. Even if you're not like 100% happy with something, start with it. It will blossom into a good idea, hopefully. This is also a really good time to bring back that box that we had from the very, very beginning. Our boundaries of any goals or constraints that we brought in from the very start that we know we wanted to kind of roam around in. This is a good idea to also see a good time to see if the idea that you want to start with kind of fits in there. Maybe it doesn't. That's okay. If so, it's great. You can start with that. If not, you can either like continue using these creative strategies, whether it's these ideation activities or asking more questions or just plain exploring different versions of them. But it might also mean that it's a good time to redraw those boundaries. Creativity, like I said before, doesn't come from a magic formula. Definitely modify any activities that you see, whether it's online, something that we did today, in ways that make sense for the situation that you're in. You can also apply these different activities at different stages of your project, whether it's a ground zero or a small addition. Yeah, hopefully you have something to just get started on. Just a really quick recap. Today we looked at creative questions, creative configurations, creative applications, creative constraints, and hopefully now we have a good an idea of what each of those are. Creative questions meaning digging a little bit deeper into what you have defined as a problem or as a theme. Configurations meaning taking inspiration from things around us and combining them in different ways that might be new or might be interesting. Applications just meaning explore wide, just jot down every idea that you have all of them are great and valid, and creative constraints of just maybe setting a boundary and using that as an option to kind of push those boundaries and think a little bit outside the box there. But before we go into any questions, I know I'm looking at the time, we don't have that much time. I do want one thing, one really, 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 really important thing for everyone to know, especially because when we were going through exercises, a lot of us were super keen on like just sharing some stuff that we had. But maybe sometimes it also feels like, oh, I need to come up with the best idea. I need to come up with the most original idea, or I need to come up with, I don't know, the most creative idea. So I'm going to hoard them and nobody else is going to look at them. The thing is, creativity is not a limited resource. It is essentially infinite. It is essentially renewable. It is essentially, unlimited. The thing is, we all benefit from being collaborative. And I know this is really, really difficult remotely, but everything that we talked about today, asking questions, learning about different people's stories and experiences, taking inspiration from the world around us, coming up with constraints, like all these things, they only exist. These things that power creativity, they only exist because we can share those experiences and we can share that information, right? You didn't just like get all of the inspiration around you from thin air, like it came from somewhere. So yeah, don't feel like you need to know the most, have the best idea, or be the first, because when our desire to innovate and our desire to build new things comes from a place of hope for a better future, we can only benefit by sharing our ideas and what we know. And I know it's a little backwards for a hackathon because the whole thing about it is like, oh, you're a finalist and you win. But overall, like, if someone's on the same path as you, that's a great thing. That means they're also just as interested as you to make this world a better place. After all, bringing back one of the first analogies that we made, dance is really fun by yourself, and you should dance on your own sometimes. But dance is even more beautiful and more fun when you can share it and experience it together, whether it's a performance, whether it's a party. It's just, it's more fun together. So if you have any cool problem spaces, ideas, things maybe that you're not using this time, or modifications of your idea, I really, really, really urge you to share them with people. We have a Discord channel of Hackathon Success. I don't remember exactly how you get into it. I think it's the current open channel. I think it's workshop. If someone can correct me from the organizing team if I'm wrong, where you react to one of them called Hackathon Success, and you can be automatically added to this channel. But definitely, like, all the cool ideas, I know there's so many cool ideas out there. Feel free to share them with everyone. I think it's really cool to also see, for example, if you're looking for more team members that are also interested in the same things. It's also a great way to find folks who will join you on your journey. Timing was, wow, very on the dot. I added a slide for questions, as well as anything, if there's any questions beyond just Hack the North, or actually, if you have any questions during this event, feel free to reach anyone on Discord, as well as the channel. Here's my handle. Outside of Hack the North, here's my email and my Twitter. Someone tweeted this morning that all of Waterloo Twitter is side. Also the program that I go into, so maybe this is a self-fulfilling thing. You know what? It's fine. Hopefully that it's helpful. We are at time, but if there's any burning questions. Oh yeah, Sophie just mentioned you can opt into the channel from Browse Topics under the Workshops category. Oh, one question in here. What do you do if your ideas have already been done? Great question. Do it anyway. There's a million ways to not just like come up with the idea, but also how you execute it too. But that is all. I hope that was fun, at least. I don't know. Was it? Was it not fun? Tell me if it wasn't fun.
It was fun and casual.
Oh, keeping it cash.
Good vibes.
Hopefully the vibes were, hopefully at least the vibes were there. But
thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you.
Can't wait to see these new ideas.
Yeah, I can't wait to see all the ideas that come out of this weekend. It's gonna be super cool. All right, I think is there a workshop after this?
I don't think so.
I don't know the schedule. I'm sharing.
Very good vibes. Thank you, Kaylee. Happy hacking.
My Chrome is being buggy. I can't see anything. Okay. Also, if anyone on the organizing team want to tell us, great, perfect. There is another workshop. Stay tuned for the intro to security workshop. That's starting now. Get excited. But yeah, we will. And really big thank you to both Shardle and Brendan for just providing vibes and answering questions. All right. See you all. Bye.